Hi, I'm Linda Lambert, and I'm talking with Katie FLEISCHMANN today, who contributed a piece called Driveway Day. Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Um, she contributed it to Spring and All, which is this book, the anthology written and edited by Red Wheelbarrow Writers and published by Lisa Daly's Sidekick Press. The anthology was juried, and it includes a collection of poetry and nonfiction and some rather unusual writing. But first, let's find out a little bit about Katie. I want to introduce the theme of her story by reading the very few first paragraph of her piece, which, as I said, is called Driveway Day. I have metastatic breast cancer. I am living with incurable cancer that is currently managed with medication. I'm still not sure how to say this out loud. To fully portray the hugeness of it without sounding grim. Treatment has taken a toll on me, but I still have this life to live. I still have a daughter to raise and to show how to do this awful, hopeful, scary, beautiful thing we call life. Well, if you are looking at Katie's face right now, she does not look like a grim person carrying a terrible burden. And as we just talked a few minutes before we started recording this program, she said there's some parts of that piece that are not true. And before she tells you what those things are, I just wanted to say that what stuck out for me when I first read this was I still have a daughter to raise and to show how to do this awful, hopeful, scary, beautiful thing we call life. So she has a positive attitude and she wants to help other people who read her work to know how to deal with this. So tell us a little bit more about the statements within this good paragraph you wrote.
Yeah. No, it was fun to write this piece and to get it out to the world because I do feel like I have a story to tell. And I am living with metastatic breast cancer, which is a stage 4 cancer. It's incurable, and I will have this for the rest of my life, hopefully a very long life. Um, when this piece was published, that first paragraph was true. My medication was working. I had no evidence of active cancer. But then when we did the reading at Village Books, that same week, I found out that my cancer was back. So um, it's it's been a journey, and I moved on to a new medication, and we hope it's working. And I have mixed feelings on whether or not it is. Just the way I'm feeling, but um, I scan every few months and see what's going on inside, but I feel great. I don't look like a cancer patient right now, um, which is wonderful, but I am still living with this thing that will forever be with me. But um, there is still a beautiful life to live. My daughter is 5, soon to be 6. And she's the love of my life. She is the joy, and she brings so much joy to my world. And it's hard living with cancer, and it's always on my mind, always. But it also pushes me to live a little bit harder and um, do some more fun things, because who knows how long any of us will be here. And I just have this added little weight that's always there.
You mentioned when we were talking beforehand that that the poem on which the book was predicated, a poem called "By the Contagious Hospital" that William Carlos Williams wrote 100 years ago, or was published 100 years ago, had some hope in it for you. And I wonder if you'd talk about that for a minute or two.
Yeah, I think as you write in the preface in the book, that the poem is a little bit dark to start with. And there's a line that says, "Beyond the waste of broad muddy fields, brown with dried weeds, standing and fallen." Like, that's not hope. But it's it's a little bit dark. It's not beautiful life. But then at the end of the poem, it says, "Still, the profound change has come upon them, rooted. They grip down and begin to awaken." And that this poem in general just kind of speaks to me and is a lot of what I want to portray in my writing, that I think everybody has a dark side, something that has either happened or will happen. Everybody goes through hard times, but if you
Mhm.
can get through them and come out the other side, I think there's a lot of joy to be found in life as well. And um, I throw myself a pity party every once in a while, absolutely, but I try not to live there. I try to come back and try to keep a positive attitude, and it's definitely not every day, but I try to come back as quickly as I can.
I noticed in your piece that your daughter wanted you to write with chalk, and you have these lines about how you didn't want to do that, but instead you just said, sure. You did not give in to that, whatever was weighing you down. It sounded like you just did not feel good.
Yep. And
And
I've had plenty of those times. But like I said, she is just my little light, and I don't want to tell her no. I want to do all the fun things with her. I want to go ride bikes with her. I don't want to do sidewalk chalk. I don't like crawling on concrete, but she wants to do that. So let's join with her. And it brings her joy, and lifting up others as well can bring a lot of joy. And Leia does that for me. Um,
do
you
you,
know,
does she know about your cancer, or how have you talked to her about it?
she does. Yeah.
Yeah,
So she was 2.5 when I was initially diagnosed. So
yeah.
she doesn't, and when I was initially diagnosed, I had surgery, and then I did chemo, and then I did radiation. So I did all the things, all the ugly things. And
Mm-hmm.
I very much looked like a cancer patient, bald
Mm-hmm.
and chubby. Um, but she was young at that point. So she didn't really know what the deal was. And, more recently, she knows that I have cancer, but I also, as everybody can see, I don't look like a cancer patient.
No, you
To
don't.
her, it's mostly appointments that I have to go to. She's like, "Why do you have to go again?" It's like, "Well, I've got this thing," and so she knows that mom has cancer, and I look very different under my clothes, and so that's a conversation that we have. And as she grows, we'll probably have it more. But yeah, we try to. I don't hide it from her by any means. I try not to hide it from anybody, really. I think that there was somebody that reached out to me early in my diagnosis that has been a part of most of my life, and I did not know that they went through breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But she reached out and said, "Hey, if you need anything whatsoever, or just to talk, because I've been there, let me know." And that was such a gift for me. When you're newly diagnosed, you have no clue what's going on. Cancer is just that super scary word, and um, so, and I would love to be that person to anybody else, because it was such a gift to me. And um, you know, I've always been pretty open. If you want to ask me something, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't usually come out and say a lot of things. I'm fairly reserved until you get to know me. But if I can be that person for somebody to make things a little bit less scary, I want to be that person. I want to give that gift as much as I can that I received.
That's just a wonderfully open-hearted kind of thing. And there are lots of us out there who are breast cancer survivors. My birth mother, I found, died of birth cancer, or died of breast cancer at 65. So that made me really aware of it. And then I got breast cancer before that age. And I've been cancer-free for over 20 years. And so now that
Hooray.
makes me really feel grateful. And to have someone who has out there who's suffered a lot more and has something that will always be with her is very inspiring, I think, for people to hear what you have to say, like right now, and to read what you have to say. And along those lines, I wondered when you had the idea to start writing about it, and how that's going.
Yeah. So forever, I've had a dream to be published, and what that
Oh,
looked like, I had no idea. But it's always just been floating around since as far as I can remember. Um, And then I worked in corporate marketing for a while, so I've done, lots of business writing and things like that, but I've
Mhm.
never done any, journaling and stuff, but not a lot of personal, actual, story writing. Um, and then through cancer and COVID, so I was diagnosed in February of 2020.
Mhm.
So cancer and COVID to me are basically the same thing. Um,
Yes.
and
Cancer
having
is
to go
its own
through
kind of COVID.
it is absolutely. Um, and so, through that journey and process and the healing from it, I felt like I had a story to tell at that point.
Mhm.
So I started researching, how do you write a book? How do you write a memoir? Um, Figuring out all the pieces. It's a whole new world that I had no idea about. But I found a couple of local resources. Village Books in town is fabulous. The Narrative Project and Cami put on a kind of series of webinars at the beginning of the year, and
Mhm.
the spring and all was the call for submissions was put into that. Um, and so as I've been toying with this idea of writing a memoir, this submission came out for short stories, and I was like, let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can write a story. And it was nice because it was nice and short, and submitted it and was selected, which was such a joyful day for me. And it was pretty cool. It was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And so, story writing and memoir writing is still very new to me. I've been at it for maybe a year at this point, but and I'm very inconsistent in my writing, and I have a lot of ideas and little snippets of things, but not not a full story by any means. But I would like to write a memoir about at least my initial journey through cancer and the pandemic, and with raising a small child, and how that affected me and my family, and um, hopefully bring some joy out as well. And um, yeah, it's a new journey, but I'm really enjoying it. It's been really hard at times to tell the story, and that's why I think I've set the memoir aside for a little bit, and I've written
Mhm.
some of the happier pieces, but the harder pieces have been a struggle, and they're kind of exhausting. So I've kind of put that aside for a little bit, and I come back to some pieces sometimes, but um, it's a one day thing that I'll get there. Um, but I've been enjoying writing small stories as well, and starting a blog, and just kind
Mm.
of keeping the writing up, and exploring other writers and different styles of writing, and still very much learning at this point.
Do you have a blog or a website that you would like people to go to? Because this would be a good place to let it be known if you're
Sure.
ready to do that.
Yeah, I would love to. It just launched in the last couple of weeks, and it's katiefleischmann.com. Um, Last name is hard to spell, but
Not that
um,
hard.
yeah. But yeah, there's a few of them out there now, and I hope to keep building it, and um, sharing short stories, and eventually, hopefully, my memoir and bigger stories.
A lot of us write in snippets.
Mhm.
We jot things down in a journal or on a scrap of paper. And eventually we find those little scraps of paper, or maybe you're more organized. And
Mhm.
they're kernels to sort of get us going. One of the things I do is morning pages. That's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning. Is I write 3 pages, and it has to do with Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and a newer book that she has. And I find that really generative. It doesn't have to be good writing, but there's always one or two things within there that is useful to do, and I'm fresh and my mind is going early in the morning. Um, I've had to swap that out doing that instead of exercise, and that was hard because exercise, if I don't do it, then
That's
first thing I don't necessarily get it done. So
Yep.
that's more than enough about my kind of writing, but I just want to encourage you that, um, what you're doing, all those stories that you're living and putting down, and the fact that you're finding focus in a blog is a really good thing. You'll get there.
I will. Yep.
Um, do you have anything that you've written in the past? Do you have any writers that you liked maybe in high school or college that spoke to you?
I don't have any, and I'm terrible with names too, so that doesn't help. Um, I've read a lot, and I've written mostly journal writing.
Yeah,
But I don't remember names, and same thing with movies. Like I could go to a movie and then completely forget what movie I just saw, the name of it. I know the preface, and then when it starts playing on the TV, I was like, oh, I think I've seen that before.
yeah,
And same thing goes for books. Like I really enjoy them as I'm reading them. Um, and I remember the story, but I have a hard time remembering the author and the writers, which is horrible because I want people to remember my name. So I should probably work on that.
I think it's just a matter of writing it down because I have to do that too. And the older I
Probably
get, the
true.
more difficult it is to remember. My mailman stops and talks to me, and he's got so many movies and so much stuff in his 50-year-old brain that it just astonishes me. It's most of what he listens to or watches are not things I would, but I'm just so
Yeah,
impressed that right there they are.
they're right there. Yeah, I don't have that
Um,
gift.
um, memoir, I think your style, I think the way you did Driveway Day tells a story. And I'm wondering what the process of writing it was like.
Yeah, the initial writing went really quick once I had the idea. Um, and it was just to capture this very simple moment in time. It's a day we've had many, many times out on our driveway.
Yeah,
It's an afternoon spent with everything around us and how we interact with our little world around us. Um, and so the initial getting it down came really quick once I had it figured out in my head. But there was a lot of thought and like, do I talk about this? Do I talk about that? How do
mhm.
I approach this? Um, and then there was the editing, which I sent it to a good friend of mine who's done some editing work, and it's like, hey, can you read this and give me your thoughts? And there was two pieces in the story initially that I knew just weren't working, but I couldn't figure out why not. And she
Funny,
pointed a
isn't
couple of
that?
things out. Yeah, she pointed out the exact same things that this isn't working, and she gave a couple of ideas of to why it's not working for her. And I was like, yes, that's what it is. So that's what I needed. Um, and then after the submission and going through the editing process with Marianne, there was some more things, and I changed the title, I think 3 different times.
Oh, I like the
It
title a
was
lot.
I love it now, and it completely makes sense now.
Yeah.
Um, it was either bubbles or on top of the world or our world, which are themes within the story. Um, and then I read it in my writing group at one point. I think it was after I'd submitted it for publication, and I read it to my writing group, and one of the gals in there who's just amazing, Tiana, um, she's like, I feel like I'm there for driveway day. And then like a week or two later, as I was going through edits, I was like, oh my gosh. And I heard Tiana's voice come back. It's like, it's driveway day. And so then changed the title. And that was kind of our final round of edits with Marianne for the book. And it all made sense. And I felt this light, like when that came out and the title actually made sense to everything. It was like, oh my gosh, this story is so much better. And it all makes sense all of a sudden. So
It was such a simple title, but
mhm.
perfect.
Yeah,
There's nothing flashy about it. And the story's not flashy either, but it embedded are all these little gems of wisdom, the interaction with your daughter, the things that she says, your resilience in the face of her requests. And Driveway Day was perfect. I like hearing the story of how it came about.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun to write it and go through the process, and being my first published piece, it was very fun to go through it. So
It's a great
honored to be in this book full of so many wonderful writers, and
yeah, there are some
all
good
of their
writers in there.
stories are there are, and it's a treat to be included in that.
And this is the fourth book that Red Wheelbarrow Writers has done, and the first one that was juried. So that, there are people who didn't get accepted, and it's always hard. Red Wheelbarrow in its years of being around has always tried to be accepting of writers. And so it's hard to even turn, I wasn't on the editorial board this time, but it is hard to turn down things. But also, I know Marion was very enthused about your writing, and wanted to include it, and I can see why.
Yeah.
It came out very polished. I have lots of pieces in it underlined because there were just good phrases and insights.
Oh,
And
well, thanks.
I just liked it. I just liked it quite a bit. Besides writing, I think you mentioned in your bio that you sometimes like to run, you like to putter in the garden, you like to play in the kitchen.
I
What about
do.
those things? And whether you have time for them now and energy.
Yeah, sometimes they'll have their moments. I do love running. You mentioned exercise and fitting that in. Running is the thing that grounds me and lets me process a lot of things. I have my two best friends. We run together. That's what we do. And it's our time to be together, and I love it. I don't run very far and I don't run very fast. I'm a 3 to 5 miler, and a couple of times a week, but I enjoy it, and that what keeps me active. And
Yeah.
we have a small garden out back. I'm a very lazy gardener. Once it goes in the ground, I have a big push in the spring to get everything in the ground, and then if it survives, great. If it doesn't, oh well. I have a two kind of tomato forests this year that have volunteered from last year. I didn't even plant tomatoes this year.
Oh, wow.
They just came out of the ground. So that's been fun. And a bunch of flowers this year. We haven't really done flowers in the past, but we planted some flowers, and it's fun to be out there with Leia too. And she likes to plant things, and she's always searching for carrots, and my kid wants to eat a carrot. Awesome. I'm going to support that all the way.
And carrots fresh out of the
So,
ground when you wipe off the dirt.
yes.
Pretty
Mhm.
fantastic.
They really are. Yep.
And tomatoes, my gosh, my daughter gives us a tomato plant every year, and it is just flourishing this year.
Yes. It's
They
a
are
great
so
year for
sweet. And
tomatoes.
Marion gave me some of her tomatoes. I've been
Yeah.
finding excuses. I've put them in everything.
Yeah.
Scrambled
I know.
eggs, so
Yeah.
good.
It's kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, we have too many. Like now what do we, I'm kind of over them a little bit, but then I'm super sad when they're all gone. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We have just about the right amount for just the two of us now. So
yeah.
that's great. So and how do you play in the kitchen?
So before my kid, I was wandering Powell's books. We lived down in Portland, and I came
Oh,
upon a book called Food in Jars. It's
oh,
all about jams and pickles and preserves and that sort of thing. And but they're all small batch. So you can get maybe 4 jars out of them,
oh,
out of a recipe, which is much more manageable than canning boxes and boxes of peaches, as I remember doing with my mom as a kid.
no.
So that was super inspiring to me. And we have a peach tree and a plum tree out back that sometimes they just are prolific, and we have bazillions of peaches and plums, and didn't want them to go to waste, and I couldn't pawn them off on all the neighbors because they got tired of them too. So um playing in the kitchen and preserving things has been fun. I like to cook. it's been a while since I've put a whole lot of effort into cooking just with the kid. And my husband's also a great cook, and so we've trade off in the kitchen. And I do find joy in the kitchen. Like, I truly enjoy cooking. A lot of people can't say that, but I truly enjoy it. So
Oh yeah, I love cooking, especially when I get to try new things. Do you have a visitor there?
I do have a visitor. Come here for a second. Say hi. Here. No, she's gonna be shy still.
Leah, I would love to see you up by your mom. I've seen you once
Say hi real quick.
before.
No,
She's got a mind of her own, like her mom.
she does. She is very strong-willed.
I
She's an
bet that
independent kid,
when
and
your
I'm all
book,
for it.
yes, independence is a good thing. And I was what they used to call a lonely only, but I loved being a lonely only. It was
Yeah,
great.
I know. I go in streaks, and sometimes she wants a brother or sister, and I was like, but then you got to share.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun not sharing all the time.
Have you got a timeline for your book or some
Oh,
sort of
I should set
wishful?
myself a timeline, because then I'll actually get to it.
Well,
um,
yeah, if you've been in touch with Cami Ostman, you know, she has
mhm,
scary timelines, and man, you better
she
make them.
does.
She's great.
Yep. She is great. Yeah. Leia starts kindergarten here next week, and kind of getting some more routine back into our lives, I think will be nice. And
Yeah,
I'm hoping to set aside some time for myself to actually sit and write, and planning a retreat for myself, and getting out of the
good.
house and just spending the time for me. And um, when you're in the house, then there's always something else to do. So
I
peeking.
certainly know that. I saw her beautiful eyes just at the bottom of the screen for a minute. Leah, I am glad you're here with your mom, and don't be embarrassed, but you probably are. You've got a great mom, and she's
It's fun
writing
to
what
see her,
she thinks
and she's
about you.
very proud of the book too. And
Good.
that mom has a story written, and
Yeah.
we write stories together sometimes. And yeah.
Storytelling and kids, and I had daughters, and I have grandkids now, and so my 7-year-old granddaughter loves to make up stories, and we
Yeah,
spend magic time doing that.
nice. I
It's
love it.
great.
I think it's a gift.
Good
So
gift. Well, what else would you like to say? Do you think you can muster enough attention away from Leah to read apart from your book as a
yeah,
companion here? That'd be
I
great.
would love to. The readings that we've done for the book with a bunch of us, I've read the beginning of the book, and Linda, you read the beginning also. So I think I'm going to jump to the end today.
Great.
As the story goes on, and it's me and Leia on the driveway, and then Dad comes, and the neighbor comes out, and some other neighbors come. So it's kind of towards the end of the afternoon, and pick up towards the end. Says, Mom, can we do bubbles? She calls. The girls walk hand in hand up the driveway. My husband goes back in the garage to fish out the bubbles. Our neighbor joins us, and while my daughter describes the world to her friend, we catch up on pleasantries. My husband hands me the bubble tube when I unscrew the wand, waving it back and forth, creating just enough motion to make bubbles. The girls see the bubbles heading in their direction, and they shriek with glee. They run in circles, calling to each other as I dip into the solution again and again, occasionally pitching into the grown-up conversation on the other side of the driveway. In our second story window, our cat is sitting on the sill. A bubble floats by, and he stands on his back legs, trying to swat it through the window with his paw. More bubbles float up, and his face bobs as he follows them, trying to figure out how he can get in on the fun. Our grandfather-age next-door neighbor comes out on his way to an appointment. He stops to chase a few bubbles that make it over to his driveway. Laughing, he looks younger than his years. More neighbors out for a walk stop to remark on the cheery weather and the sounds of pure joy that can only come from carefree kids under the age of 10. In this moment, standing on top of our worlds, blowing bubbles. I'm not thinking about cancer, not worried about the future. I'm just here, present, surrounded by neighbors who have become friends and the cheerful sounds of a spring day. I soak in the sun, the squeals, this beautiful, ordinary moment in time. I take in a breath and let the memory sink in. As the last of the bubbles float away, the neighbors head home and my husband goes back inside to work. My daughter and I are left on the chalk-covered driveway. She slips her precious little hand into mine as we stand in silence for a minute, admiring our world. I hope she's locking away the memory too. Mom, look! She points to one last lingering bubble wafting over the neighbor's roof, as if this moment doesn't want to end either.
I didn't want that story to end, but since it had to, I thought that was a beautiful way to end it. And I can say with great honesty and anticipation that I look forward to more work from you, eventually from your finished book, but from other short stories as well. And I will encourage others to follow your blog. So thank you for taking time. And Leah, thank you for sharing your mom with us and spending this time so that Red Wheelbarrow writers and others beyond Red Wheelbarrow writers can learn about your experience. It's a joy to read the words.
I
Thanks.
appreciate it. I appreciate your time, Linda. Thank you so
I
much.
loved it.